This is the Outlap F1 podcast featuring America's own Cody, Andy, and Deanna. Your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. Join us on the Outlap. We have survived our first triple header, and we are now on the other side of it. Welcome on in, everybody. This is season 7, episode 11 of the Outlap F1 podcast. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. Cody, my man, hope you had a good holiday weekend. We'll talk about the race in a little bit, but did you enjoy your weekend?
Yeah, it was really nice. Got a good race, ate a shitload of ham. So all in all, about all you can hope for. And despite the fact that I am in my 30s, me and my wife and her siblings still do an Easter egg hunt.
Oh, nice.
Which gets surprisingly competitive. So it's always a good time.
Knowing your wife as I do, why am I not surprised? That does not surprise me in the least. But good to hear that you guys had yourself a good weekend. I recovered. I in my old life, I used to do a lot of tax return preparation. So my body is just like attuned to the calendar. And it was always the 3 days after the deadline that my body would just stop. And that was like Saturday. And even after qualifying, I was just like, that's it. I'm done. I don't want to do anything else. And that's pretty much what happened. So I woke up on Sunday. I felt a lot better. I was able to watch the race and everything. And so now I feel like myself again, which is a good thing. But I kind of just enjoyed being out for the weekend, basically. But if you have found our show, welcome along. You could follow us, as always, on Blue Sky, on X, Instagram, Discord, sometimes a little bit on Reddit, and, of course, here on YouTube. One handle for all of that, Outlap F1 Podcast, is that handle for all of those places. If you enjoy what you are hearing and you like what you're seeing, if you want to do us a solid and click the like or the subscribe button so you can get notified when we push out new content, that would be great. If you're on your favorite podcasting app, if you want to leave us a 5-star review, we would love that as well. What does all that do? It helps us just come up a little bit better in F1 related search results if other people are trying to find content like this. So that's all we're asking you to do there. You can email the show. outlapf1@gmail.com is going to for sure get your message to us. You can also leave us a DM on Twitter or X or Blue Sky. We get those all the time. Thank you so much to our continued supporters, including Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to become a member of that hashtag Outlap F1 Nation, you can see our anchor page in our show notes. We do ask for a small little donation, $1, $5. What does that help all do? It helps us keep our technology as relevant as we can, allows us to keep this lovely recording platform working as it does. So we would be most appreciative if you'd like to help with that. All right. Well, that's it for the particulars. We have a heck of a weekend to talk about. The Saudi Arabian GP did not disappoint. At least I don't think it did in terms of drama. There was certainly a fair amount of it across all places. But Cody, let's start with our headlines of the day. What you got?
Max Verstappen did not convert pole into victory, but my lawyer has informed me that I have to agree that it was fair. No, just being perfectly honest. Yeah, Max got pole. It got my excitement level up to here. And then lap 1, turn 1 happened, and my excitement fell through the floor because we all knew it was going to happen. And I do have to admit it was fair, but we'll get into that in a minute. And ends up happening that Oscar Piastri snatches the victory away after starting in second.
Yeah, we will cover all of that in just a little bit. My headline is that the race felt like cobra snakes dancing all night. It's such a twisty, challenging track, and these cars just they just glide through it so well. It's kind of amazing we only got the one stoppage that we did, and obviously we will talk about that. And it didn't bite more people worse than it did. It's such a tricky racetrack. but these guys made it look pretty easy and put on, I thought, a pretty darn good show. Penalty notwithstanding, it was still a very, very tense watch right up until the end. So, you're not necessarily getting your wheel to wheel banging as much, but you are seeing tension, strategy, and a lot of other elements all kind of fall into this, kind of make it pretty darn interesting of a watch. So I was excited for that. All right, 1 second while I cue this up. Just trying to find my soundboard here, because that's where we're going to start, because we are going to go all the way back to Saturday. We will talk about my lovely reaction to Saturday. All right, but here we go. All right, the sound is playing, so here we go. Going out in Q1 P20. Gabriel Bortoleto in the Kick Sauber. P19 was Esteban Ocon in the Haas. P18 was Nico Hulkenberg in the other Kick Sauber. P17 was Jack Doohan. P16 was Lance Stroll, unable to get out of Q1. He now shares a very ominous record with Kevin Magnussen. We'll talk a little bit about that. P15 in the other Haas was Oliver Behrman. P14 was Isaac Hadjar. P13, Fernando Alonso. P12 was Liam Lawson, and P11, just missing out on the Q3 shootout, was Alex Albon. P10, we will talk about why he's here. That was Lando Norris, who did not set a lap time in Q3. P9 was Pierre Gasly. P8 was Yuki Tsunoda. P7 was Lewis Hamilton. P6, one of the stars of qualifying, and I thought his best weekend in the Williams, Carlos Sainz. Heck of a job there. P5, Kimi Antonelli, continuing to just do the job. P4, really good result for these guys too. Charles Leclerc on the Ferrari. P3, he's always there. He's another one that's just not going away anytime soon. George Russell in the Mercedes is becoming a thing. Well done to that. P2, Oscar Piastri and the other McLaren just missing out because he did it again, folks. The Max factor happened in Jeddah. Max Verstappen, he ekes out less than a tenth in it. Max Verstappen takes pole, a 127.294, a hell of a last lap to secure the pole position. Cody, I have a funny feeling I know where you're going to want to start here for qualifying.
Ooh, it was another really exciting qualifying session. In fact, we've had lots of very exciting qualifying sessions so far this year because the cars are a lot closer than we expected them to be. And yeah, Max Verstappen snatches another one away from the McLarens, this time by 100th of a second. At one point, he was holding provisional pole by 1,000th of a second over Oscar Piastri. So the smallest of margins that they can clock. And yeah, I was getting a little nervous on his final lap because Piastri put in a really good time. Verstappen got a purple sector for sector 1 and a yellow sector for sector 2, but he was still up on Piastri, and I was like, oh man, he's got so little to work with, but he can probably do it. And yeah, he just barely held on to it. I think it was a yellow for sector 3 too, but managed to still hold on to it by that 1/100th of a second. So super tight margins in qualifying between Max Verstappen and the McLarens. This time it was Oscar Piastri getting in second by that super small margin. And I'm sure you're going to want to explain why, because the other McLaren was not there to play
Was
ball.
not there. Did not set a lap time because he did not finish because he crashed. Let's just be honest. He crashed. Lando, who I thought at leading up to this had honestly had the better of the runs between the two McLarens. He was definitely showing he had a little bit more pace. However, when we got to qualifying, everything jammed way up. I mean, you look at the FP3 times, and I made the mistake of even half giggling, thinking like, "Oh my God, this is going to be the dominant one. It's finally going to happen." Wrong was I. As soon as Q1 happened and Max was able to pit both McLarens, I said, "He's not going anywhere. We're in for a fight." And a fight was what that we were about to get. But Lando goes out. He had done the thing that he's always trying to do, is get those 2 sets of clean, soft tires for Q3. And he went out and, in his own words, he overdrove it. He overdrove it into turn 4, trying to eke out a little bit of lap time that probably wasn't even there to get. The back end comes around on him. He tries to save it, but in Jeddah, the smallest of mistakes, that track just bites you and bites you hard. And he goes into the wall. and ends up not being able to set a time. My hat for the first time this season went officially flying. I said some really not nice things in the air in this apartment. So I apologize to anybody who may have heard anything. It was just a very visceral, emotional reaction. But that's what's going to happen. It'll get better for Lando and McLaren a little bit as we get into Sunday, but at the time, very, very frustrating because it looked like he was going to be on that, trying to rally, trying to, one, hold off his teammate, and two, fend off an ever-charging Max who's continuing to drag that car forward.
Mm-hmm. I had a little moment myself when Lando crashed because my wife was on the phone next to me, so I couldn't really scream out. And I felt so I just had a moment of being like, "Oh shit!" And he's gonna be mad about that one. But some other stories going on here. George Russell continuing to qualify very well in Mercedes. He's on the second row with Charles Leclerc, so they're poised to capitalize on the second McLaren not being there. As you alluded to before, Lance Stroll now holds the dubious record for the moment, I think, tied with Kevin Magnussen as to being the driver with the most Q1 exits in Formula One history. Now, I guess that comes with the caveat that for pretty much all of Lance Stroll's Formula One career, he hasn't driven the best of cars. But it has also not been the worst of cars. In fact, that Aston Martin / Racing Point / other, possibly somewhere else in there,
Force
has
India.
actually been, yeah,
Force
there you go,
India.
Force India before all that. That's actually been a pretty good car on occasion. And it was a car during the Racing Point days that Lance Stroll was even able to get a pole position with. So that makes it not much of a caveat. It's definitely not a great record to have. I don't know what he can do about it other than just, take it on the chin and try to get out of Q1 next time so he's not holding it all alone.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really tough because Aston Martin is not going to put a whole lot of resources into that car. They've kind of already said that. So I would expect more pain for the guys in green. Unfortunately, if you are an Aston Martin supporter, it's going to be a very frustrating next. You just get through the next 18 races or whatever they are, and their focus is all on next year. And they could come out of the gate and be absolute bananas next year and could be wiping the floor with everybody because who knows. But yeah, they do have Adrian Newey, and he's working exclusively on the 2026 car. So that's where, if I'm taking the pain now for future gain, that's what I'm hoping for if I'm an Aston Martin fan, for sure. Other notable performances, Carlos Sainz in the Williams. This was the Carlos Sainz we saw in testing, setting some fast laps, getting that Williams up and going. I thought throughout the qualifying, he was on the pace. Really good showing, I thought, for Williams here. Honorable mention again to Kimi Antonelli, who continues to be the best of the rookies. There's 6 of them. There's plenty of them to choose from, and Kimi Antonelli is doing the job, and he's right behind his teammate. So Toto Wolff right now has to be beside himself that he has kind of rolled the dice, and so far it's come up nothing but 7. So good on you for that. And don't not think that the Ferraris aren't coming, because the Ferraris are coming. They might not get there all the way in qualifying pace, because we're going to talk about come Sunday, their race pace is getting a whole lot better. Only 7th for Lewis Hamilton. That's we may have to talk about him post this race too, because the honeymoon's definitely over there. And the theory of what does he put into this year versus what he's really there for, which I still think is 2026. But, how much is he able to get out of this formula of car is really, I think, the bigger question there. And yeah, as the fight for pole turned out to be a 3 ding dong, where like George Russell takes provisional pole, and then Piastri pipped him, and then right at the end, Max pipped him. And then I didn't have a hat on anymore. If I had a second hat on, that one would have gone flying too, because I'm like, oh, that's just perfect. Because I'm like, great, that's Max in clean air on a track that's a little difficult to pass. So going into Sunday, I was nervous. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So that's kind of where I was. I was a little upset because Lando overdid it, and a little nervous because I didn't think we were going to actually be able to overtake Max, at least early. But as we will talk about, it all kind of changed on the first turn. But before we do that, we will flip first over and we'll talk about the back markers, a couple non-finishers who also were involved in some lap one kerfuffles. Pierre Gasly in the Alpine and Yuki Tsunoda, feeling really bad for him because up until this point, this was his best weekend in the Red Bull by far. Was on it in qualifying pace. He qualified P8. That's at least in the range of where Red Bull can say that's a functional second car. But unfortunately, not able to do much. He got into it with Gasly. And then even though Tsunoda was able to get away from the wreck, by the time he got it back into the pits, I think his ERS or his electrical system was not allowing the crew to touch the car. They ended up having to shut the engine off, and that was pretty much day done for him. The classified finishers, P18 saw Gabriel Bortoleto. P17 was Jack Doohan. We'll talk about their strategies. Interesting call, and it didn't work out. P16 was Lance Stroll. P15 was Nico Hulkenberg. P14 was Esteban Ocon in the one Haas. And P13 was Oliver Behrman in the other Haas, not quite able to repeat his Saudi brilliance as of last year. All right, Cody, big thoughts here in the back markers.
So one of the two, pretty much both of the big incidents for the race occurred on lap one, and one of them led to a couple of non-finishers. Unfortunately, Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda collide with each other going through the first couple turns. Didn't really seem like there was too much like fault here on any one of the two. They just kind of collided with each other. We see that a lot, that there's a lot of forgiveness given for lap one incidents just because everyone is packed so tightly together, and you're going into pretty much a chicane for the beginning of this lap, so it's going to get really, really tight as you go back and forth. So yeah, no fault really given on those two. It's just too bad that it affected Pierre Gasly, who has been really performing very well these last couple of races, outperforming what we expected to see from the Alpine, and Yuki Tsunoda, who we've all been hoping was going to continue on his performance from last race where he scored his first points for Red Bull. We were hoping to see more of that here, and it just was not to be.
Yeah, just like I said, really tough luck. I kind of saw the incident the same way. I don't think there was any particular fault. It's two cars going into a corner that's really only made for one because it's at the start of the race and everybody's double filed. And it's, you wouldn't see two cars double file at that corner in any other lap other than the first one. And I think it was just a case of two cars running out of room, and neither car wanting to give an inch. And both cars were trying to, out for something to prove. Gasly that, he had gotten points, and Tsunoda obviously trying to prove his worth in the other Red Bull seat. So, yeah, just kind of an unfortunate thing. Bortoleto and Doohan decided to do the thing where, like, hey, we got a safety car. So there's your 100% chance of a safety car. We got one. Let's come in on the first lap. Let's dump off our medium tires. Let's put on a set of hard tires. That was a good call because the hard tire was a really good tire. I did not expect them to try to do the Nico Rosberg and hang it out for 49 laps, but that's what they ended up doing. And yeah, it didn't work. Those cars are not that good on those tires, even if the hard is a great tire, because it didn't work. Because Bortoleto and Doohan came back P18 and P17 respectively.
It was definitely bold, and we ended up saying that, this is a lower deg track anyway, and we were seeing throughout this race that the hard tire was actually very durable, that a lot of drivers were able to put together pretty long stints on it. But yeah, putting together almost the entire race distance stint on one set of hard tires, it's pushing it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the 20 seconds that you thought you were going to save, you gave back and then some. Just in blue flags. So I didn't quite understand that there. So those were kind of my thoughts. Yeah, kind of unfortunate the Haas momentum, which had been doing so well, especially in Bahrain, kind of nipped here a little bit. When we get to the constructor points, they are one position lower because they did not score any points here because the P5 team did score some points and scored some good points as we now move into the midfield. Which saw P12 was Liam Lawson, P11 just missing out on the points, kind of a hard luck situation. Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, who had an incident with his clients, Gabriel Bortoleto, who he manages. So probably an interesting ride home or plane ride home that had to have been for sure. P10 making the points, Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bull. And here were my, if you're not in the top four, these I thought were my other stars. P9, Alex Albon in the Williams, and P8, his best weekend for sure in the Williams so far, Carlos Sainz, who did the whole, I'm going to hold back and give my teammate DRS assistance at the end and helped Albon secure that P9. P7, Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari, obviously still trying to come to grips with how to drive that car. Not really working for him at the moment. I'm sure he's glad this triple header is over. P6 was Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes. Not a huge, no huge real dramas. Again, just a guy doing the job, kind of slotting in where he needs to slot in. And for a rookie, again, solid performance again. Toto Wolff has to be extraordinarily happy with his choice there. P5 was George Russell. Complained a lot about tire graining, especially late, and thought his left front tire was at one point about to explode, but it did not. But he manages to come home in P5. P4, the big mover of the day was Lando Norris from P10 to P4. Had an outside shot at the podium, probably wasn't going to get there. When we get to the podium, we'll kind of explain why. But Cody, big thoughts here in the midfield.
So you mentioned that incident between Fernando Alonso and his client, Gabriel Bortoleto. Alonso had a moment coming down the start-finish straight where he got squeezed right up against the wall by Gabriel Bortoleto, who apparently didn't see that Fernando Alonso was there, or at least it didn't appear that way. I don't think he meant to squeeze him that much on purpose. It just kind of happened as he was trying to take the line going into the turn. But it was so close that Fernando Alonso came over the radio and said, "Holy crap, that was close. You should probably take a look at the car and make sure everything looks okay." Ended up being a non-issue. It is too bad that Fernando Alonso now a couple times, I think, has finished in 11th this year. So he is just barely missing out on those first points of the season. I think that he will get there at some point, but he's going to need a little more to swing his way.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is, unless one of the teams around them, either Haas or Williams, have some sort of kind of a DNF, it doesn't look like he's able to kind of get into. He's in the fight. Like that was like I guess if you're thinking Aston Martin, it was good that they were in the fight and they were kind of they weren't getting swallowed up like they have at maybe some other tracks. So that was good. But I thought the standout in the midfield was for sure the two Williams, in Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz doing his. Maybe we're just going to call that the Sainz maneuver, where he just drops back and lets the other guy have DRS and keeps him going. But I thought that was pretty cool. It's good teamwork. That's what you got to do, when you're fighting for every point that you can. So I full props there. Ferrari race pace is definitely getting good because you could tell because Charles Leclerc, who did finish in P3, we'll just tell you what the podium was. P3 was Charles Leclerc, P2 was Max Verstappen, and P1, we will talk about how he got there, was Oscar Piastri in the other McLaren who takes the victory. But Lando was definitely trying to. He did the off strategy. Started on the hard tire, didn't go as long, went 34 laps, which is still pretty damn long, but not overly so. To where at least when they made the tire stop, I thought, okay, there was enough time for him to kind of come back. He does get back around Antonelli. He does get back around Russell, but unable to chase down the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, who did two mega stints on his tires and kept his tires with plenty of life in them to hold off Lando by about just a little bit over a second. Lando could never really get into DRS range despite multiple attempts at it at the end. Like we said, the podium turns into Leclerc, who finishes, that's Ferrari's first podium this season, so congrats to them. And then we're going to talk about P2 and P1. It all kicked off early and then kind of went throughout. Do you want me to tell you about turn one, or do you want to take it, Cody? What do you want to do?
I'll do it.
All right.
So the root of this whole issue is that Max Verstappen did not get a great start off the line, or at the very least, Oscar Piastri got a much better start than Max Verstappen, and he was in a position where he was more or less right alongside Max Verstappen going into the first turn. Now, they both had their opinions, and of course they're going to, as to what actually happened to that turn. But what happens is that uh, Max Verstappen ends up running out of room as he's trying to hang around the outside of Oscar Piastri. He cuts the corner to hold on to the lead on track. Oscar Piastri manages to complete the turn, staying entirely within track limits, or as far as the rules are concerned, he's within track limits. Kept some wheels on the track there. Max Verstappen says that Piastri ran him off the road. He didn't leave him any room. He says that Piastri didn't have any intention to actually make that corner, which I have to admit is a little bit of horseshit because Piastri did make the corner. And then you got Piastri saying over the radio, yeah, Max had no intention of making that corner. He gunned it in there so that he could have the argument of, I was ahead of the apex, and, therefore I'm entitled to space. And looking at it a few times, yes, it was very close, but no matter how much I like Max Verstappen, he does push the rules to the limit. And I think this was another one of those cases where he pushed them to the limit, hoping that luck would go his way and he'd get a favorable opinion from the stewards about it being, a lap one, turn one incident that tend to give some favorable opinions to incidents that occurred there. The fact that, he was not left a lot of room and that they were more or less right alongside each other going into that first turn. But stewards ended up agreeing that, he was not entitled to space at that point, or he should have tried to keep it on track, or that he should have just let Piastri by, because really Piastri was on the move into first place already at that point anyway. So following the safety car, Max Verstappen is given a 5-second penalty. For what it's worth, too, Max did about as much as you can do with that 5-second penalty. He had the penalty, but he did hold on to the track position, which gave him clean air, which let him open up a gap to the cars behind him going into the round of pit stops. But he was not nearly far enough ahead to stay ahead of Oscar Piastri during the pit stop sequence. So Max ends up bringing it home in second place. Piastri takes a well-deserved win. Again, I think, 2 in a row, 3 on the year? It's off to a fantastic start to the year. I was very disappointed because after Max got pole position, I was thinking, holy shit, he could win this race. If he wins this race, he'll be first place in the points, and I'm going to be gushing and gloating on this podcast over him being leading in the points 5
Watching
races
my
into the
face get
season.
redder and redder and redder as you
Yep.
do.
I
Yep.
was so ready for that, and all the wind was out of my sails after that first turn because I knew it. Like, I saw the incident, I was like, oh shit, that's a penalty. Like, he's totally screwed now.
I
And
think
that isn't what ended up happening.
Yeah, I think I literally did the Leonardo DiCaprio meme where I'm like pointing at my television going, I've seen this before. I've seen this before. Like,
If there's anything to take away from it, though, he did still finish P2. He gained points on Lando Norris.
I've got a whole page of positives that you can give Red Bull and Max Verstappen out of this race. If you're a Red Bull fan, you should be feeling incredibly encouraged about what you saw, especially given where you thought you were going to have, especially on the Friday, especially even in FP3. Whatever they did to that car between FP3 and qualifying, and I don't know if it's just a question of taking off downforce so that Max can just glide the car or whatever he does. It was a bit of Red Bull magic that I did not expect to see coming. But as soon as Q1 happened and I saw him, he's right up there, I went, oh, here we go again. Like, I knew he was not going to go away. Let's put it that way. And I knew it was on for a fight. In terms of the turn one thing, my take on it is, if you're going to give Lando the 5-second penalty in Coda for going out on the outside and trying to make a turn where Max was on the inside, and then we heard the 4 criteria of what the standards are, it so favors the car on the inside. Now, whether or not that's the right way to approach it or not, it's the way that apparently everyone's agreed to do it. So, Lando, are you watching this? Get to the goddamn inside, because that's what your teammate did, and that's how you actually wrestle with Max. You get your car somehow, some way to the inside, even if it's a dirty line, and you get the rules on your side so that if an incident like this happens, it's pretty much going to be a slam dunk. I've heard lots of reaction to it. Other than Christian Horner, who's got his printout. Oh, by the way, Netflix should love that. Um, Rocking around the paddock where the supposed apex is, which I'm sorry, Christian, that's not where the apex of that corner is, but nice try. I appreciate the effort. Um, Everyone has said that that's been Oscar's corner, that he got there. And I think the reaction to it has been pretty universal from smarter people than me that have looked at this thing. So yeah, if you're going to call one penalty one way, like I said, you flip the cars over, it's the exact same situation. At least we got a little bit of consistency here, so I'll take that. I'm glad they didn't give him a 10-second. I didn't think it was worth that, because that would have killed the race. That would have absolutely killed it. Um, I do understand that there's a bit of a mitigation thing on that's the first corner, but he did the thing. He tried to do the Max thing again, where he just lays it out there and tries to get to the apex first. He just didn't have it this time because, like you said correctly, it was all the launch off the start. Oscar, I think, got him by 0.3 or something, according to the graphic that they showed. So, and that's basically what wins Oscar the race. That and one hell of an overtake on Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton is going to have Oscar Piastri flashbacks between the move that he does in Melbourne on the outside at the end of that race for P9 in the rain in a place that no one had gone, to a part of the racetrack in Jeddah that nobody had gone. You want to know how we know that? Because he kicked up an absolute cloud of clag and dust and everything. What is it? Turn 22. It's the fastest part of the track. Oscar was trying to come around. Max had pitted, and this was, the critical. Does he get enough to keep Max out of DRS? And is he going to make the 5-second penalty actually worth it? Oscar needed to make an overtake, and boy, does that dude have some stones when he decides that he's going to go into overtake mode. Whoa! Wow.
Yeah, Oscar's already got a couple contenders for overtake of the year, and we're only 5 races in.
Yeah. I mean, that's why he's leading the championship. It's that factor right there. And, the rest of the race was pretty much a pace battle. It seemed like it was kind of around that 5 seconds until basically the end. And then the first time I've ever heard Oscar get heated on the radio wasn't about anything going on with the car. Get the freaking back markers out of his way. Like Vettel used to do the whole blue flag song. No, Oscar's not about that. It's get the motherfucker out of the way, because that's pretty much what he said on the radio without the cussing. But it was like all of a sudden, like I had never heard him in that tone before. I'm like, oh, he is capable of it. Wow. Okay. That's him pissed off. I got it. But damn. But yeah, I thought overall the rest of the race, I thought it was a tense watch. Yeah, there wasn't a ton of overtaking. There was certainly more than was the case in Suzuka for sure. But this is such a physical racetrack. The walls are so close. Any corner could potentially lead to a problem. And it was amazing that we only had the one safety car intervention, because you thought somebody somewhere, especially with 6 rookie drivers, was going to have another incident. It just never came. So, we never got a chance to see, what could have happened, with maybe some other strategy. Could Max have gotten back in it? It had had a second safety car come out. You never know what could have happened at that point. So, but yeah. So yeah, we're going to kind of leave this here. We'll come back. We'll tell you what this did to all the standings. It's a lot different board than we saw a week ago. And then we'll talk about where we are in the constructors as well. And then we're going to open it up to your thoughts on what you saw this weekend, the fan email segment. Our regulars have done an amazing job. Again, thank you so much to these 3. So we're going to react to their thoughts. We'll hand out some awards. I'm in such a good mood. I actually have an anti-rubbish. I'm not going to yell at things. I'm going to actually praise somebody this weekend because it was such a refreshing thing and they atoned for a prior mistake. So if you've heard me yell at the rubbish, think about what it's going to be because I guarantee you, well, you might know about it. You might be able to figure it out. But anyway, we'll come back. We'll get into it. We'll talk a little bit about predictions and then we're going to actually queue up because they're coming here, man. It's Miami next. But we got a little bit of a break to go. So come on back and we'll hop right into it. You are listening to the Outlap F1 podcast, and we'll be right back after this quick pit stop. Grab your flu powder, broomstick, or apparate to your favorite audio streaming service to join the discussion on Hogwarts, a podcast, where Dan and his friends have in-depth chapter-by-chapter breakdowns of each Harry Potter novel. Join the group as they dive into the magical world and discuss plot points, analyze character development, and occasionally go off the rails. Whether you're a muggle who's new to the series or a pure-blood wizard who won't need a remember-all, Hogwarts, a podcast, brings everyone to the Great Hall for a magical discussion. Hogwarts, a podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back on in. This is season 7, episode number 11. I love how that rhymes. Of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2025 Saudi Arabian GP review show. And you've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. And we just wrapped up talking about that Saudi Arabian GP. And now we're going to take a look at where all the points shake out after all of this. It is a much different looking table. So, Cody, if you want to take the drivers, I will handle the teams.
All right. For the first time since Mark Webber, we have an Australian leading the Drivers' Championship. Oscar Piastri leads for McLaren with 99 points, followed by his teammate Lando, who falls back to second after what was a pretty good recovery drive in the other McLaren at 89 points. Max Verstappen, however, still holding on close. He is in third place, only 2 points behind Lando and 12 behind Piastri. Max is driving for Red Bull, in case you didn't know that already. And he is at 87 points. Next is George Russell in the first Mercedes. He's in fourth at 73 points. Charles Leclerc, after his first podium of the year and first podium for Ferrari for the year, he's in fifth place at 47 points. Kimi Antonelli having a pretty solid beginning to his rookie season. He's in sixth place in the second Mercedes at 38 points. Lewis Hamilton, maybe not the most ideal start to his career at Ferrari, but still respectably in seventh place with 31 points. Eighth place, Alex Albon, really showing that Williams is doing pretty well, has probably improved significantly over last year because Alex Albon's already up to 20 points on the season so far in eighth place, which is really good. Esteban Ocon keeping a Haas driver in the top 10 in the driver standings, which is pretty excellent. He's in ninth place with 14 points. And then still, despite his new record, Lance Stroll, 10th place in the driver standings in Aston Martin for 10 points.
I keep looking. I'm like, how does he still be there? Well, it's everybody behind him just keeps kind of falling over themselves a little bit. Like, it's not that Lance is doing anything great. He's been bad the last 3 outings. He's another one who's glad this triple header is over with. But it's just everyone else has been just as bad as he is. So it's kind of weird, just kind of how that all worked out. But looking now to the team standings and out in front, defending their Constructors' Championship very well, at least in the first part of this season, McLaren Mercedes have opened up a gap. They are up to 188 points. They lead second place, the Mercedes Works team, who check in with 111 points. Third place is Max Verstappen. Oh, I'm sorry, Red Bull Racing Honda, up to 89 points. Mainly on the strength of one Max Verstappen. P4 is Ferrari. They are up to 78 points, and they are on the hard charge for sure. P5, up to P5. A couple years ago, this would have been laughable to even suggest it for this team. Williams, Mercedes are up to 25 points and solidly now in P5. They have overtaken Haas, who despite some great results, are suffering from a little bit of inconsistency here, and so they remain on 20 points. P7, Lance Stroll is on the strength of it. I got to do the Max Verstappen thing for Red Bull. I got to do it for here. P7 is Lance Stroll on 10 points for Aston Martin. P8 is Racing Bulls. They check in with 8 points. P9 is Alpine. Really bad luck for Gasly because I thought he was going to score another round of points here. But they check in with 6 points. And P10 is Kick Sauber on the strength of Nico Hulkenberg's effort in the first race in the rain in Melbourne. I have a funny feeling I'm going to say that a lot this year. They remain on 6 points. All right. Well, you've heard our takes on what we saw during the Saudi Arabian GP weekend. It's now time to open it up to your takes on the weekend. It's the fan email segment. Got some great stuff in here. Dave Doherty actually messaged us a little bit on Saturday. So the first question is his Saturday comment, and then he gets into his Sunday stuff. So, Cody, it's your time to shine, sir. What do we got?
All right. Our first fan email comes from Dave Doherty. Thank you, Dave. And he says, "Hi, do you think Gasly is worth promoting to a top team like Mercedes, for example, or any other top team?" And then he goes on to say, "Well, where do I start? I am absolutely gutted for Gasly and Tsunoda, that accident at the start of the race, as I was looking forward to seeing what Tsunoda could do in the Red Bull, as I've heard that the team wants to work closer with Yuki, which is a good thing. Gasly is improving a bit in the Alpine as well. But let's talk about McLaren. Do you think Oscar is the team leader now or being promoted to such? Uh, Particularly what I've heard on the radio communications. I'm not going to slate Lando, although I feel sorry for him than he looks once. Our thoughts, to be fair, Lando was his driver of the day, Dave's driver of the day, from P10 to P4. That's epic. Yes, it was a really good recovery drive from Lando. We have to remember that he put himself in that position. Uh, Lando does seems to make a fair amount of mistakes, and we gave him a lot of people gave him a bit of a hard time last season because being in that position of trying to chase down Max Verstappen for the long shot of the drivers' championship had to be very stressful, and we gave him a fair amount of hell over little mistakes that hampered that here and there. It does seem, though, that continuing into this season, he is making some little mistakes here and there. It cost him what could have been a much better finish in the only sprint race we've had so far this year. Cost him a shot at a podium or a win this time out. And now he's not leading the championship anymore. So I would not go so far as to say myself that Oscar is the team leader. I think that Oscar and Lando are both extremely talented, and I think that on occasion, especially in qualifying pace, or maybe even more than occasionally, I don't know why I'm saying occasionally, Lando is just as fast, if not faster, most of the time in qualifying trim. The problem is that Lando also seems to be more prone to mistakes, and Oscar is really solid and level-headed and kind of has that champion factor we see of making hardly any mistakes. And the only one that really cost him anything so far this year was in the first race of the year, and he made the exact same mistake that Lando did just like 1 second later and just ended up worse off from it.
Like he's a half a millimeter away from pulling that off too.
Yep.
And not
But
spinning off.
I think it's definitely too early to call Oscar the team leader. I mean, Lando's been there for a long time, and they've put a lot of faith in him and a lot of trust in him to be the good driver that he is. I think more of what's going on here is that Lando's getting in his head a little bit. He's psyching himself out. He probably knows that this is as good a chance of a run for the championship as he's going to get. They have the dominant car. They have it at the beginning of the season. All he has to do is beat Max and his teammate. But that's got to be a lot of stress. And I think he shows that more than a lot of the drivers. On top of that, yeah, he's got one hell of a teammate up against him. And the car that they've developed for this year seems to favor Oscar's driving style, which is, a big part of it. So unless they develop the car more in a direction that favors Lando's driving style, or if Lando can get on top of the issues that he's having driving that car. I don't want to see him let it go. Uh, I think it's definitely too early to say that Oscar's going to run away with it. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of work that Lando has to do to keep up.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly not made life easy on himself. Let's be frank. I mean, especially after the first race where, yeah, he gets he saves it, Oscar doesn't, and if that easily could have been flipped over and it could be a 30-point lead right now for Oscar, and that could be just as legitimate. But I don't think you're not going to see the team come out and do pure team leader stuff until they are pushed into doing team leader stuff. And what do I mean by pushed? They haven't even had to have the opportunity to really have preferential strategy yet because they haven't been quite on par and on level with each other, even when they've been close on track. Lando was leading for a little bit, but everybody knew he had to pit because, he hadn't changed his tires yet. So you knew that wasn't going to get spicy. And the second Oscar started to feel the dirty air, they called him in, which was the right decision to do. That's what you do in that situation when you're trying to win the race. And if they waited, I would have been on tonight, and I would have been, what are you doing? Like, come on. You knew who
And the
was your.
analysis paralysis award
Yes,
goes to.
exactly. But where I think this whole who's leading at McLaren, if we want to have that debate, it's going to come down to who does it on Saturday. And right now, it's advantage Oscar. That's just the way the data is showing. And we talked last time, I think, about what I think the differences are in the driving style. The other thing is Lando throughout his career, and it's kind of the same thing that I feel is plaguing Lewis in the Ferrari to a certain extent too. These two guys throughout their entire careers have always gotten more lap time out by braking later and pointing that car in and doing that point, I'm going to get it into the corner. This car doesn't let him do that. And that was exactly what he was trying to do in that turn 4. He was trying to point it and take that little bit of extra curb to get a little better exit so he could get, just that little bit of instant lap time, and the track bit him. And because of that, now he's got the recovery drive. So, you never got to see the McLaren strategy hat ever come out on what they were going to do. I do think there will be tracks that are going to be more favorable to Lando. It'll be interesting to now. To me, the other interesting part is we've been to a bunch of different tracks. We've also been to a bunch of different tracks that have been pretty easy, with the exception of Bahrain, on the tires. We really haven't seen a tire eater track other than Bahrain. That's where, if there is something that I think Lando still probably does a little bit better than Oscar, especially on race day, is eke out a tire length. But Oscar hasn't had to do it yet. So until we see that situation, I can't really say for sure that that's still advantage Lando. So, but I think the team's aspect of it is they're gonna just push this down the road and let them try to figure it out. And you're not going to see anything, I think, definitive until at least race 12 or 13, depending on where they are. And even then, they're going to do it only if they get pushed into it.
Other points here, you did ask if we think that Gasly is worth promoting to a top team. Well, it's kind of hard to say because Gasly was promoted to a top team when they were a little less of a top team, to be fair. And he floundered, as a lot of drivers have floundered in that second seat at Red Bull. So it's really tough to say. Was it too early when he went into Red Bull? Was it the fact that he was in a Red Bull? Was it the fact he was up against Max Verstappen, who had the car developing in his direction, and Max Verstappen is Max Verstappen? That was a long time ago at this point. Gasly has shown very well at times in his tenure here at Alpine, and I'm sure he's hoping that Alpine will turn into a top team at some point someday, like they said they would. And next year is a chance for it to happen, considering they're not doing their own engine program anymore. Who is to say? But I definitely think Gasly shows a lot better than his time in the Red Bull. The only problem is like, where do you put
Yeah.
him?
Where do you
have
go? Yeah.
Like let's look at our four top teams. I mean, I guess Red Bull is as good a place as any, but they're not going to do that. They're not going to go back to Gasly after all this time after he left their organization. So that's just like a non-starter taking
Once
over
Helmet
that
writes
spot
you
from
off,
Yuki.
you're written off, dude. He's not
Exactly.
going back there.
But what else is left? Ferrari has Charles Leclerc, who's awesome. Lewis Hamilton, who is proven awesome. And even when Lewis Hamilton decides to throw in the towel and retire, I'm sure they'd be happy to go back to Carlos Sainz. Um, Mercedes has George Russell, who has been very successful there, and they've got the budding talent of Kimi Antonelli, who they seem to be very strongly behind. Uh, at that point, McLaren, you're not going to McLaren because Lando and Oscar are both extremely talented, pretty young drivers. So there's not really any top team for him to squeeze into, even if he does deserve it. So I think at this point, his hopes lie in Alpine becoming a top team, maybe trying to squeeze into somewhere else that has, you know, uh, high hopes going into the next regulations, like Aston Martin. But even Aston Martin's is a tough one because Lance Stroll isn't going anywhere. Let's be real. And Fernando Alonso, while you know aging
Fernando
and
won't let anybody sit in his seat until he
yeah,
wants them to.
yeah, like they're not going to kick Fernando out of there unless something happens, uh, unless his performance really starts to decline. So there's not anywhere for Gasly to go. I think yes, I would say that he is probably worth promoting to a top team, but the best he can hope for right now is that the team that he is in becomes a top team.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you stole pretty much just about all of my points that I had ready for this question. So well done there, sir. The only one that I think is even has a sliver's chance, and that is if somehow the contract negotiations between Mercedes and George Russell somehow take some sort of titanic turn for the worse, and George is asking for a ton of money and Toto isn't willing to pay. And I don't see that happening. I think George has done everything that Mercedes has asked of him to do. I think he is clearly right now their number one. He's acting like their number one, and he's putting in results. Here's another just off the podium today, and this is probably his worst result of the season. I think it's fifth place. So that's still really, really freaking good, and nothing to complain about. So yeah, it's kind of Gasly's kind of between a rock and a hard place. And what you said, Cody, is the path. The path is that somehow Flavio and Ollie Oaks and all those guys at Alpine can put their heads together and can come up with something, possibly in the 2026 rules, that somebody else doesn't have, and Alpine can be at the front. Because I think if Gasly's there now, given the experience he has, I think he would do well. But I don't know who's he going to take away from. He's certainly not, like you said, he's not taking a seat at McLaren. He's sure as heck not taking a seat at Ferrari unless Lewis decides I'm over this. And even that would be a huge thing because Ferrari's got an academy full of young drivers who are willing to sit in that seat. Um, you've got You're certainly not going to take any spots at Red Bull. Like I said, once Helmut Marko writes you off, you're done. So that's over and done with. So you can close the book there. That leaves the slim chance of a Mercedes seat. Like I said, if George Russell somehow that negotiation doesn't get done by the end of this year, and that gets acrimonious and weird, which I don't think it's ever going to happen because I don't think Toto wants to have that press. So I think come around summer break time, I think you're going to see George Russell sign his extension, and you're going to have your top four all set, ready to go for 2026.
Mhm. I agree. Thank you again, Dave, for your email. Our next one comes in from Rachel Fleming. Thank you, Rachel. And she says, so that was a nerve-wracking race, possibly because this race has always made me nervous. I don't enjoy watching racing at this track. Well, I'm going to have to disagree with that. I do get nervous watching them here, but I also do
The
enjoy it.
onboards are scary as
You're
hell.
like, it's close to the wall,
Like you
and they're
look at
going
it and you go,
so fast.
how do you not wreck every other lap?
Yeah, it's like the margins between an awesome lap and absolutely destroying your car are nothing.
That much.
Um, Then she goes on to say, firstly, sorry, Max, but you should have given the position back. I think the penalty was fair enough, and Piastri deserved the win. I am combining Alonso and Sauber Watch since they did nearly combine. Bortoleto almost hit his own manager with a poor move. Green cars are clearly the worst cars on the track. Good recovery from Lando after the disappointment of Saturday. Hopefully, he comes back stronger in Miami. Finally, a good result for Williams with another double points finish. And would just like to add that I have just seen Max win Driver of the Day. What on earth is going on with these votes? Well, I guess we'll start there. The Driver of the Day is literally a popularity contest.
Yeah,
You
whose
know,
click
unless
farm? Whose army of click farms are working better today?
yes, sometimes you do see the driver that really deserves to win it, but more often than not, it's popularity contest, and with uh, Max being wronged in the eyes of many of his fans, I'm sure they all took that out by voting in driver of the day for Max. So yeah, that's a bit of a crazy one.
I could give it to him for the qualifying because I thought his qualifying effort was amazing.
That is true, but it's driver of the day,
Yeah, yeah.
Sunday, in my opinion.
Let
Um,
us do another one on Saturday. Oh, that'll be fun.
yeah, that would be a good one. Um, yeah, so you did say Max should have given the position back. I agree that he should have. I
He really
don't
didn't
think.
have time. He really, if
Well,
you
so
think about it, he didn't have time.
that is the first point. Is that he had that spot. The safety car came out. You can't give it back under the safety car. And by the time the safety car ended, they'd already given him the penalty. So if there's anything from this whole situation that I don't really agree with, is that there was no window for him to give the position back. If anything, I think they maybe should have waited a couple turns to issue the penalty just to see if he was going to give it back, which he wasn't. He was never going to give that back. Um, and while I think he should have, as far as fairness goes, he was never going to because, uh, either he didn't get the penalty, or he's in front, or he does get the penalty, but he's still in front. And he's got the clean air, and he can make that work for him. So yeah, as
His
far
best
as
chance to win was exactly what he did
yep, yeah, from
by
as
far.
a competitor, what he did was the best that he could do after getting the penalty. Um, but yeah, I do think they should have at least given him some sort of window to try to give the position back if he was going to. Um,
And
yeah,
one of the things we don't know anymore, and it's probably a really good thing that we don't hear this anymore. We don't know if there was some sort of horse trading potential offer floated to Red Bull over the FIA radio that says, "Hey, if he gives it back on the first corner, if you guys are willing, we're willing to toss the investigation out," or something like that. Perhaps Red Bull said no. I'm not saying that they did, because it's great. I think that we don't hear that kind of stuff, because
yeah.
when we did hear it, that's all anybody wanted to talk about was picking that stuff apart. So I don't know if there was an offer and it was rescinded, and Red Bull's stance was pretty clear, and pretty consistent that they thought they were in the right. And, that's what happens when you think you're in the right and the stewards say no.
Mhm. Other things that I think we pretty much touched on everything else here. We talked about Alonso and Bortoleto almost coming together. The bright green car, definitely the worst cars on the track. Uh, we had that good
They
recovery
look
drive
good,
from
though.
Lando.
They look so good.
They
They're
look
so
cool.
slow.
They looked way cooler in uh when they did the car reveal because it had more of that green to black fade to it. Now it's kind of like a really stark fade cut from green to
Doesn't look
black.
as
So it's
good at
a little
night,
cool
though.
looking.
Doesn't look as good at
Yeah,
night.
that's true. I do think Lando will come back stronger in Miami. He's going to have that confidence boost coming behind him of that being where he won his first Grand Prix. So I think if anything, that'll give him a bit of a boost, and hopefully we do see him show better. Um, and yes, it is a nerve wracking race. It is always nerve wracking here because you got the speed of Monza without any forgiveness or runoff, which can be scary. But that's part of what makes it exciting. Is these guys are right on the edge between uh, catastrophe and glory. So that's what I'm here for.
And don't get too used to this, because I think we're only here until 2027, and then the monstrosity track that they are building somewhere out in the desert which is apparently going to have a straight that's like 27 stories tall or something like this. Like I've seen the renderings. It looks like Herman Tilke went berserk and had some sort of a fit of like, I'm just going to put these corners here and these corners, and they're going to build it, and they're building it. And I have no idea what it's going to look like when it's done. It's going to look ridiculously colorful. You're going to be able to see this thing, I think, from space. It's insane the amount of money that the Saudis are willing to spend on a racetrack. It's crazy.
It is one of many crazy super projects going on in Saudi Arabia right
That's
now.
true. That's
So
very true.
let's hope that this one actually makes it off the ground and
That
gives us something to
finishes on
show.
time.
Yeah,
Let's hope they're
yeah,
not homologating, 3 days before. Like, oh, that barrier, oh, that'll be fixed. But we don't need another Las Vegas. We do not need another Las
please.
Vegas.
Thank you again, Rachel, for your email. Our last one comes in from the Formula. Thank you, Mr. Formula. And he says, my toxic trait is thinking that with a little training, I could, at bare minimum, Latifi my ass around in an F1 car and finish most races. But not Jeddah. It is a terrifying spectacle, probably the best match of circuit and cars that we have right now, at least from a spectator's standpoint. Very well said. Also, I can't help but wonder what could have been with Yuki today. He looked like he was gaining some confidence, and it's really unfortunate what happened. Yeah, we did talk about it's too bad Yuki Tsunoda didn't make it farther than the first couple corners. Um, I think he's going to probably not take too big of a blow to his confidence after this one, though, because it really wasn't like his fault. There was really not a whole lot that he or Gasly or anyone else could have done about it. There's just, not enough space for two cars to go where they went. So I think he's going to hopefully look at this as an indicator that he does need to start qualifying better so that he's not as likely to be in this situation. But he can go into Miami still holding his head high that he's got a couple points from his time in Red Bull and that he's not going anywhere right now, and that he's still got plenty of time to show what he can do. As far as the I do dream that I could Latifi my ass around in an F1 car. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be with competitors. Someday it would be really cool if I could worse than Latifi my ass around in an old F1 car on an airstrip somewhere. But these are just dreams at this point. But yes, Jeddah, as we just said a few minutes ago, it is terrifying. But it does, as you said, it does really give a chance for these cars and drivers to show what they're made of because they go so fast here.
Yeah, it's Monaco, but twice as fast, and you can actually pass here, which is even better. Yeah, I don't know that I could ever. It wouldn't even. I don't know that you could pay me to get in the car and at this track just because it's crazy. Like even a Formula 4 car, I think would be terrifying. Just even being close to anything at speed. But I mean, to your point about Yuki, yeah, the thing with Yuki is he didn't have the fade throughout the qualifying sessions that he had been having, so that's encouraging. I think if you're trying to take something away, he was on Max in the practices, and then when Max turns it up another notch, Max still does pull away, but that's because he's Max and that's just what he does. But it wasn't the big giant fade. Yuki's not out in Q1 here on a track that's difficult to drive. The question's going to be for Red Bull, and I've already heard this kind of speculated because of where we're going. We're going from a track that I think would suit them. The cooler it got, the more their tires stayed in, the better that car tended to work. It's going to be hot as hell in Miami. That race is going to be in the middle of the day. It's going to be hot. If there is a tire wear problem, we're going to see it. If we're going to see it anywhere, it's going to be here. So it's going to be there. So if they can get through Miami, I think after that, then there's much better circuits for them. But I think Miami may be a bit of a challenge. So don't rate what Yuki does in the next race. I'm not looking for it as a bellwether, at least on where he is.
All right. Thank you again, Mr. Formula. And thank you to all of our regular contributors. We do like hearing your opinions. And sometimes some of the things you guys say give me a pretty good laugh. So
yeah, no,
definitely love hearing from you guys.
Formula's got the wordsmith gift there. I do enjoy some of it, and sometimes I have to stop, especially when I hear it, because it's done very well. Let's put it that way. And thank you to everybody who contributes to our lovely little program here. All right, so we will move into our awards. And like I said before, I have an anti-rubbish because I don't really have anything to yell at this time, which is kind of weird. But Cody, I'll let you go first. Which
All right. So I did not feel that there was a very strong contender for rubbish this week, which probably means it was a great time for you to do an anti-rubbish. Um, thought very, very briefly about giving it to Lando because of crashing, but then he had such a good recovery drive. I can't really call that rubbish. It was a good recovery drive. So if I'm going to give it to anyone, I feel like I have to give it to Liam Lawson, as much as I really don't want to, because he showed pretty well in qualifying by out-qualifying Isaac Hadjar. And I thought, okay, maybe he's moving up in the world a little bit here. And then he did not get any points from the race. In fact, his teammate, Isaac Hadjar, made it by him and finished in 10th to get a point, which really isn't reflecting well on Liam. So definitely not the worst weekend that Liam Lawson has had by any stretch. I do think he is improving, but he has to improve more and more quickly because, we've seen it so many times before that the Red Bull Academy, more or less, is very unforgiving. You earn the ire of Helmut Marko and you're gone. And there are some promising drivers in the Red Bull wings that are going to be in a position to come into Formula One at some point soon. And he has to really, really prove himself really quickly here, or else he's going to be out of that seat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get it. I don't want to, it always feels bad kind of dumping on poor Liam here, but I get your point. Yeah. It's got to be now. Otherwise, the timer's going to run out and he's going to be the guy on the outside looking in, which is going to be really unfortunate because I still think there's a lot to him and there's a lot of talent there. So my anti-rubbish, because I didn't really have anything that made me particularly angry other than Lando crashing, and I reacted as I did, and I'm kind of done with that. I don't think anybody else wants to watch me slam my hat, and if you do, well, maybe at one point we'll do a live qualifying thing and you can all watch me do those types of things. But a couple of weeks ago, I lit up Sky Sports for their pundit lineup. And I have to say, this weekend, Sky Sports, you redeemed yourself. Jamie Chadwick and Bernie Collins were breaths of ridiculous fresh air into that commentary team this weekend. I thought all of Jamie Chadwick's points were relevant, interesting. I thought I got perspective. I love listening to Bernie Collins talk about strategy and engineering and what we would look for and being the rules analyst and walking up and down the pit lane and telling what she's seeing. And she's got a whole different set of eyes and a whole different perspective than anybody else on that team has. I got smarter as a fan this weekend for watching it. It's not hard. You don't have to tell me a lot. Just tell me something new that I don't necessarily already know. I get we got to bring new people in, so we got to say the same things all the time. We got to tell everybody what DRS is. That part's fine. I got no problem with it. But make me smarter. I got smarter. I loved it. That chemistry, give me that. Give me that, and I'm set, man. That was awesome. Great job, Sky Sports, this weekend.
So what you're saying is we don't need the controversy of Jacques Villeneuve.
Oh, yeah, it's not needed at all. Like it does nothing to the broadcast. And I thought this weekend was so much more of a positive thing. They had a segment where they were talking about Vettel and women racing in Saudi Arabia, and that's just it was all very feel good. And I enjoyed their stuff this weekend. So I call them out when I get mad at them. I gotta say I was impressed this weekend. So well done. All right, so we will move on into our analysis paralysis. I'll go first on this one. I get pitting under the safety car. Sometimes that's usually a good strategy. And I get even doing it on the first lap because that's when the safety car comes. I got that, but I did not expect two separate drivers to try the Nico Rosberg. We're just going to hang out on this set of hard tires for 49 laps. And if you're going to do that, let's hope it works. And it didn't. Jack Doohan and Gabriele Bortoleto, I mean, those hard tires might have been fine and they might have been on your pace, and maybe that's just where you are. But from a strategy perspective, I was surprised that you didn't give that up at some point and try to put on some faster tires and try to get your gaps back, because whatever you gained under the safety car, you lost in overall pace. So why do it? Bad call.
Yep. I
Yep.
agree with you. I didn't really, same as rubbish, didn't really have a great candidate for analysis paralysis because there wasn't too much like really rotten strategy or mess ups. But I do have to agree that it was very bold to pit on lap one and think that even with the durable hards and the low tire deg of this track, that you were going to make it the rest of the race without losing too much. I can understand it a little bit more with Bortoleto because those kick sauber cars are all the way at the back. At least you had both of them still on track. You can split the strategy and try something really crazy and hope for another safety car or something. But didn't make as much sense for Doohan because one of your cars is already out of the race, and Doohan hasn't been that bad. Like, he hasn't been great, but like, I feel like they could have at least given him a normal strategy to try and see what he could do. But no, they decided that with only one car left, they had to go big or go home, and they ended up going home.
Yeah. Yeah. It's more the fact that it didn't work. Like, I got it. I understood what they were doing. It's just didn't work. All right, so we will move on to our dark horse of the day. I'm gonna we've almost given this guy a couple of rubbishes a couple of times, but Carlos Sainz, who's had a rough start to his Williams career, I thought made good this weekend. This is the guy they thought they signed. He was on the pace, and he even did the Sainz maneuver. He gave DRS to his teammate, and he helped him secure the P9. Double points for Williams. That team really does start to feel like now it's starting to click. You're starting to see the chemistry building, and these guys are all about the team's success. So they're all in, and James Vowles has got that team, and it's a different energy coming out of that garage that I have seen for a very long time at Williams. So, like I keep saying, I keep telling everybody, watch that team next year. I think there's something special brewing. But Carlos Sainz gets my dark horse of the day here. Cody, what you got?
I'm going to expand that to not only Carlos Sainz, but both Williams drivers because they both finished in the points. We don't see that happen nearly often enough, but both Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon managed to get points for Williams this time out. It really goes to show just how far they've come over the last 5-6 years since they were literally all the way at the back of the field, where we were massively impressed to see George Russell get like out of Q1 with that car, and yeah, now they're getting double points finishes. They're, what did we say? They're in 5th place in the points right now. Yeah, they're definitely moving up in the Formula One world.
Yeah, the bar has clearly been raised at Williams. James Vowles has done that. He's installed, I think, a winning culture already, and the resources and the talent looks like it's coming online. If they nail this next set of regs, man, that's a team that could rocket right up into that top 4 easily and give people a lot of fits, because that car has always had some really endemic qualities, at least in terms of straight line pace, which in this next reg formula is a big deal. So if they can continue to hone in on what's working for them, it sets up really well for next season. So I'm excited. If you're a Williams fan, you should be excited too, because the dawn is a coming, and James Vowles is going to take you there. All right, so we will move into our driver of the day. Not who you'd think between P1 and P2, but I'll go first here, and we got agreement here. I'm gonna give this one to Charles Leclerc, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because I thought the Ferrari race pace was damn impressive. I thought the stint that he did, we all talked about at some point Lando ended up in clean air and in the lead. Charles Leclerc ended up in clean air and in the lead on the softer compound tire and went for just as long. So his first tire stint was really good. That enabled him to get on a younger, fresher set of those hard tires, and he could lean on them because he had less laps left on him that needed to be done. So great job to get P3. I thought that was the absolute max that they were going to be able to get out of it, unless Max or Oscar were going to have some sort of kerfuffle and crash. But that never happened. But Charles Leclerc was right on it throughout, right after lights out this on Sunday, man. Great drive.
I agree. My driver of the day is also Charles Leclerc because this is his first podium of the year, and he had to really work for it. Uh, had great qualifying session, managed to get great race pace, managed to make the tires last a long time, got some improvement by getting out in clean air, and then had a great second stint. Managed to get those hards working and working long enough that he was able to hold off Lando Norris in what is right now a much better car. Uh, fantastic drive from Charles Leclerc, showing himself to be another driver who is very capable of extracting everything you can out of a race car. And it's great to see. I just wish he had a little bit of a better car underneath him right now so that we could have, like a 3 or 4-way fight for the championship.
I think it's still coming. I think by the end of this season, we're going to be talking about McLaren v Red Bull, v Mercedes v Ferrari. I think they're going to stick their noses in and they're going to get into this. Might not be enough to get into the constructors, but I think they're going to take a win or two by the end of this season. I see the race pace, and they obviously figured out whatever they did wrong at the start. They're already kind of starting to get on top of. So, their big thing is, again, qualifying pace. If you got it, you're great. And if you don't have it, it's that much harder because it's really, really hard to overtake the last year of this formula. But anyway. All right. So we will move into our predictions results. It's amazing how close these can be from being really good or not so good, depending on one or two little results. So the result doesn't look close, but I assure you it was a lot closer. But Cody, you finished with 2 points. You got the P16 bonus pick, and you got the prop bet as well because both Red Bulls did not score points. I finished the weekend. I scored points, which is, hey, that's even better than last time. And I got 6 of them. I got the pole time, as you corrected me. I didn't even give myself that point. But I did get P1 on the podium for Oscar. I got P2 on the podium for Max. I did get the fastest overall lap time. I did get Fernando Alonso as the P11 bonus pick. And I also picked that both Red Bulls would not score points here. So I got the prop bet. That puts me into a 3-2 lead after the first 5 races. That competition has definitely a long way to go. I have a funny feeling it's going to come down to the end. All right. Well, so ends this triple header. My gosh, we actually were able to get all of the episodes done. Certain points I wasn't sure we were going to be able to do that, myself included, being the cause of some of the delays here. But thank you to everybody who sticks with us throughout both the previews and the reviews. I saw the preview numbers this week did amazing, even though we were kind of late to getting the episode out. So thank you to everybody who checked us out. We appreciate all of that. But Cody, any final thoughts as we now get a week off before Welcome to Miami?
I am looking forward to the Miami race for once. I normally don't look forward to this race because historically hasn't led to the best racing in the short time that we've gone here. However, it was really cool to see Lando Norris win his first race here last year. So that's given me a bit of a warmer, fuzzier feeling for it. Also, it's slowly starting to turn into warmer weather, good springtime here. And I'm sure in Miami, it's really, really nice right now. So it'll be really cool to see that on TV and wish it was just as nice here as it is there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we'll pine for the warm weather, but it will be here soon enough. I guarantee you. And then we'll be going, oh, why didn't we have it 20 degrees cooler? But it's what we all do here. But anyway, we're going to get ready for that. So that we're going to take a week off. We will enjoy the break. But then not this upcoming Wednesday, but Wednesday after that, look for our Miami Gear Up and Preview show. And then we will be back to cover the Miami GP. And then a couple weeks after that is Imola, and then we're into Monaco, and then we're into the European season proper. So this year is just going to fire at us quick and fast. So thank you for riding the roller coaster along with us. For Cody, it's been Andy. And as always, folks, may all your laps be fast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to connect with us outside of the show, check out our website at www.outlapf1.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at OutlapF1 Podcast, or email us at chatnow@outlapf1.com. As always, thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you on the next one.